Okay, 2137, good luck. So we've not played before, no head-to-head score. 740 games per point. You see 2200 in blitz, 23 in bullets, so fairly similar. So again, we're just going to try and get castle, then worry about what to do. How do I want to do this? Let's go slow and steady as per usual. To get a natural tempo attacking the bishop. Drops back. Okay, let's just get our bishop into the game somewhere. Okay, let's take and drop back. He might drop the bishop back, actually, he might do a perfectly fine move. Does trade though, so we just develop our bishop. We could go up 2 depending on what white does here. Obviously we can trade here, get our knight a little bit offside, can be attacked very quickly. So do we want to do that? Do we want to do a nice early c5, even if it breaks the pawn structure up? I'm guarded here, but there is a threat, isn't there? So I'll just develop the bishop first and then c5, I think. Maybe knight up and across to the other side. But c5 takes, it breaks the pawn structure up. You always feel like it's difficult to play for black this, but slow steady grind is what we're aiming for. So does he really want to do this? Go queen side. Let's find out. Let's play c5. That's obviously, he's deliberately hung that, so he probably wants to go queen side, really attacking. Okay, so he's taken, so I'll take back. Now it's a little bit a little bit bolder, I was going to say, wasn't I? If I take now, check across, take is no good. So up, knight down is no good. Up, knight across, check could be fine actually. Let's get the queen out of the way, guard the bishop. Now we are threatening to actually take the knight if you just cast this move. Might do it anyway. Might want a really wild attacking game. Bit riskier bringing the knight to d7 now, of course, with the rook on d1. We'd like the knight on f6 if we could. Maybe we can do this sort of concept depending on what happens. Oh, it has gone for it. So it's allowing this to happen. Okay, I'll have to go for it. So I'll have to develop the knight. I want something like this if I can. I'd prefer a knight on f6, but not easy. I probably need king across so the rook can step over. I could get a little bit fiery this game. So maybe even queen up and queen across could be a concept. Just give away this pawn. Guess knight up is a simple, obvious threat now though, and it guards the queen jump as well. Okay, so knight's gone across. So he's trying to win this pawn, logical, and will win the pawn. So up, knight takes, across is what I'm looking at. Knight up, takes is no good for sure. So I don't see anything better other than the queen advance. But this game could be basically already over, couldn't it? I've gone wrong somewhere in the opening here. It could be already finished. So I'm just going to try and swing the queen over to the king side of the board. Knight takes, queen across. Then the knights are getting a bit loose, so let's not spend too much time thinking there. Let's come straight across. Knight up just to get rid of the bishop, but I'm not sure it's a good move now. If I'm a pawn down, it's not brilliant to try and trade pieces off, but if the bishop wasn't there, my knight can get a little bit more active, a little bit easier. There might be a nice move like knight in, I guess, and then what do we do? Rook across. Rook across 1 allows bishop down. Yeah, it's gone a bit wrong, this one. I don't think there's any repetition chances just because of the pawn structure. Knight in, maybe I've still got knight up first, but you can just move the queen somewhere, like say queen down. Okay, the knight goes back. That actually allows this, and now queen down. you don't hit the queen and the knight at the same time. So I do actually have the option to get rid of that bishop. That's got to be good for me, right? I mean, I can play a rook across for a development move, but the knight's just coming back in. So let's go up and just get rid of this bishop. Dangerous bishop, dangerous combo to have on the board. The queen will just move now somewhere or other. I'm not sure which is a great square. If you go here, I guess I've got rook across, but you can easily move again the next move. But once we've traded something, this knight can, say, start jumping across to the king's side, hopefully. Maybe the knight can end up where the queen is now. But yeah, we've gone a little bit too fast here, haven't we, in the opening, and we've made a mistake. I'm just wondering whether I should actually keep the knight on the board, but I think I need rid of that bishop, don't I? It's just too dangerous having the queen and the bishop on that diagonal when I don't have my own knight squared bishop. It just feels too dangerous. Now we could do with trying to swap off one of these pawns so there's just an isolated pawn instead of two of them together. Yeah, the queen's come forward, but takes knight check to discover on the queen. My queen can actually take back, so I'm not worried about that. So I think it's fine just to take and then jump the knight somewhere. I just got to pay attention because of the potential for a discovered check, but I'm going to take. Now, do we go at the trouble of moving our queen this move? Say up, hit the pawn. You might have to drop knight back, but then the queen's coming across, so that's a problem, isn't it? I think that'll be the concept what my opponent's aiming for. So maybe I'm better dropping the queen back over. And if knight back, we can run away, right? Let's do that. Yeah. There is still a concept with a knight check, I'm aware of that, but I don't want to really have queen ride across and force a queen trade. It might be the best I can do, it might be. But I'm just going to try and get the knight on a better square somewhere. I'm not sure where yet, but you can imagine the rook and the queen combining. It's difficult to defend. I could do with swapping, like I said, a pawn for a pawn, but I might have to just abandon that pawn and just go for activity. So, might not be a lot I can do here. Knight check now I don't think works with trade. I don't think that would be enough compensation, but I might be wrong. And of course, my knight's not protected by anything, so I've got to watch out for the queen jumping to attack the knight, or even the rook on d7. But right now I've just got a simple one move threat to hit the pawn on f3. Yeah, the queen's gone back to guard, logical. So pawn down is going to be a move. So do I play knight here or here? Does it matter? Knight here, it's got a very natural jump to hit the rook and the pawn. If you push forward, I guess we can just swing the other side now. A knight's basically fine. If you push, I can just take. Gets the knight safe, and we can jump across the queen, hopefully back to the other side. So pawn down will probably be played fairly quickly. Then I'm not sure where the queen's going to end up, but probably along here somewhere. And the knight's a little bit of a buffer in case the rook can come across quickly. Obviously, I'm trying to keep up a decent speed to put my opponent under clock pressure just because I'm down positionally with the pawn vanished. So I've got queen across here, but I've got queen immediately across to create a threat. I guess you can just jump though. There might not be anything better, mind. What about queen here to hit the pawn? Yeah, I like that more actually. I like it more going here because you can still develop your queen and unwind your pieces, but it's not a natural quick attack on the queen. And I can try and activate my rook somewhere, but I'm trying to play at a decent speed to put my opponent under time pressure, but it's not easy to do when you're playing the stronger players. So I'm wondering whether to sack this pawn and uplift the rook. Knight in's a move as well, isn't it? So now the queen's come up. I'm going to play knight up and hit the pawn and just hit the basic check threat. Just because the queen has stepped up there. I mean, queen across looks like a perfectly fine move, but it's something to think about. And then do I activate a rook? Do I chuck a pawn and try and fix these pawns back? It becomes a big of a target, but say I want to really try and trade a pawn if I can. Oh, he's played there. That's a little bit risky. That might allow rook across. If rook takes, we just check. That's a little bit unnecessary, that move, I think. Queen back, not quite, but rook across, what do you actually do? Can you just ignore it? Rook takes, queen takes, we grab a pawn then. If rook over, it would blunder knight takes, so... yeah, I'm going to play rook across. I think my opponent's allowed a little... well, maybe complication, might you say. Probably perfectly good defense here, but you've got to pay attention now because of the potential for a check. If you take the rook, I just check and take the queen the next move. I mean, obviously you get 2 pieces for a queen, but it's still 2 pieces. But for a queen and pawn. There isn't king forward, though. But if you move your queen now, I've got rook takes rook, queen takes rook, and queen takes b2, and I've got my pawn back. And my knight's still got an escape square. If I can get that pawn back, I'm still back in the game. Yeah, queen's jumped up, but now maybe I can just play forward here. My queen's under direct attack, so if I go forward, what do you do? Knight across, I can just simply throw in a check. Maybe I've got queen across here. It feels like there should be something for me here. Forward. If you take here again, I can take with a check, right? Knight back, check. Yeah, I'm going to play queen up and threaten this again. If you take the rook, I take the pawn first again. And then I just take the rook the next move. Knight back, I think I'm okay to throw a check in and then maybe move my rook, something like that. We're not getting the pawn back that way, but actually no, knight moves are checking as a mate threat. Yeah, you've got to pay attention. So it might be fine just to bail out, give the pawn back. King up, I just check, get out of the way and then take the rook back. Oh, the knight has gone back. So you're going to have to bring the knight straight back, aren't you, then, once a queen check, because it's just a checkmate threat. So, gain a rook, lose a queen, gain a queen, lose a rook, gain a pawn. Is that a line to consider? I'm just looking at this and I think you'll have to come back. But then I've probably got to shuffle a rook rather than taking. Not what I was aiming for, but check, knight back. I could just come back again, I guess. Gain a rook, lose a rook. Then I can just take my pawn next move. Take now, takes is not an option. So gain a rook, lose a queen, gain a queen. Lose a rook, gain a pawn. Say king up, knight can drop back. We're back in the game then, aren't we? So check, blocks. Have I got anything better than repeating? I don't think I have, so it might be better to take the rook, but I'm going to throw the repetition in first just to burn a little bit more time. Now, is he happy to actually repeat here? Is he happy to repeat? But I'm still looking at taking here. I'd rather play on because I'm up on the clock. Take, take. It's risky. It's very risky, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to play on. It's very risky, but I'm going to risk it. I'm just looking at knight up next and then trying to obviously activate my rook because it's still a very dangerous pawn. So taking a big risk here. Now, does it matter if I go forward or back to hit the pawn? Here I hit the rook, so you might have to shuffle. Rook across. Yeah, it's got to be right to go forward. I don't think my knight's getting trapped, so I'm going to try and activate the rook. Okay, he's come across. So activate the rook and hit the pawn. Knight back, I can take this pawn. Rook across, I can take this pawn, but that pawn is probably the key. Or, of course, if the rook can somehow get in and collect this pawn and keep the other one. It's very uncomfortable when your opponent's got a pawn like this. So comes forward. Okay, so is knight back the best that I've got? Probably for now. Let's just drop the knight back. As long as it's not trapped. I'm trying to, like I say, keep that bit of pressure on the clock just because I was worse positionally. So a rook lift might be called for. At least my king side is solid, or it seems to be solid. Subject to not messing up somehow, which I'm capable of doing. So what if I play across here? I'm looking at up to come across. That was my original idea. So up. Knight down actually could be a nuisance there, but it feels a bit loose pushing my pawn. So what about simply across to attack the knight? What's the idea? Knight down to maybe come in. But rook up's not really getting me in, is it? So, I may be looking at coming this way there. Actually, no, I'm going to chuck the pawn up just to cover this square for one move. Just for one move. I need to find a way to get my rook a little bit more active. The knight's covering the infiltration. My knight's covering white. But getting some checks in could be very useful. Yeah, he's played a sensible holding move, so do I go here to cover this, make sure I can retreat? I don't know if it's a mistake, but it means I can definitely retreat my knight. Even if I get a messed up pawn structure. Oh, he's coming. Okay, I think I push this pawn, not this one. Okay, this is what I meant though about it being a little bit risky. I mean, I've got knight back now. Hitting the pawn. But this comes loose if he gets in. Yeah, I can't leave that there. I can't leave that knight there. I've got to shift that knight. Goes back, logical. So let's come across and maybe hit the knight, shall we? But then knight still getting active. Yeah, not a big fan of that. I just wonder whether I can push on, but I don't think I can. I'm going to push this side. I'm aware my clock is ticking down. Okay, so he's trying to get active. Let's come across then and try and get in somehow. Not easy. If the knight moves anywhere, I've got a check potentially. So let's come up. Okay, it comes up, but now I can come in maybe. Yeah, if the knight moves, I can throw a check in, worst case. The knight has moved, so we've got the check. Anything better? I mean, I can come across as well, can't I? But he's covered the pawn, so let's throw the check in. I can still come across. Here. It feels like there should be a mate here somewhere. Let's play knight over, go after the king. I'm threatening all sorts of checks, I think. So let's check and check. Now my knight's loose there. Let's come back. Hit the knight. We're nearly there. We're nearly there, and we are there. Wow, came down to clock, but we managed to salvage it. That's terrific, isn't it? We could easily, if the clocks were the other way around there, we'd have probably lost it. It came down to clock. Oof, let's see how the engine says we actually played it. Then we got 50 moves in there. So they're the move times for both players. Very difficult game. I went wrong in that opening and lost a pawn and made hard work of it, but we managed to get there. So let's see what the analysis says. I played a blitz game earlier. It took a little while to run. Hopefully it won't take too long. Yeah, it's faster this time. But how bad were we in the opening when we lost that pawn? That's what I'm interested in here. Also, we've got some mistakes here. We're going up and down like a yo-yo. So we've got some mistakes, but we weren't actually that bad out the opening. So even when we've lost the pawn, we've already lost the pawn here, haven't we? But we're still basically about level in effect. Yeah, we've gained an advantage here. So it was correct to trade the bishop then. So it was fine to trade the bishop. But it's saying here, yeah, just jump the knight across like I was looking at, which I ended up obviously doing straight away instead of moving the queen. So that was a mistake. And then we went to the next move. In this position, we've blundered away. We should have just taken the rook immediately instead of moving the queen. Then in this position again, we've done the same thing. This time we should have moved the knight back instead of putting the queen back, but I was just seeing if my opponent was going to repeat. And then I went for the rook trade. Then we're better, but again, it's gone a little bit up and down, but we're basically gradually better for the rest of the game. Trying to keep these moves visible here, but we've got no further bad blunders in the game there. So what were the final figures? 87 versus 84 accuracy, CPL 30 and 39. And the game's really turned here. So in this position, we're just 0.8 better. And we're just starting to infiltrate after that knight jump. Yeah, I was looking at the pawn push as well, but I didn't actually see the forced mate sequence. There might be one, but I didn't see it. I was looking for a forced checkmate, but I was trying to keep my opponent under clock pressure. And again, I should have immediately just hit the knight there instead of throwing in a check, but it ran down a bit of valuable time. Again, I'm not seeing a forced mate. My knight's under attack there. And then white just basically runs out of time. You could have just played on and tried to rattle off some bullet moves, of course, but you know, anything could happen. But that's a very good game.